Garden Warfare 2. What went wrong? Man, I played this game in its prime days, and I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, it is now a shadow of its former self. The characters were completely different. There were servers and servers of people, no matter where you turned on the game. It was such a different time. Now, this is a bit of a rant today, a bit of a look back on how this incredible game that we've all came to love and see through these hard times and, really understand what happened to it. Now, to start off with, the obvious reason for what happened to this game was the fact that it no longer receives updates. Now, this is obviously a huge thing for this game, for any game. It doesn't matter what system it is, whether it's a single player, whether it's a multiplayer. No more updates can really damage the entire game's structure. Now, obviously, this is a big multiplayer game back in the mid 2000s, 2016, 2017, whenever. And, back then, it was completely different. Electro Citron was on top, Barbecue Corn was on top, Electric Pea Shooter was nowhere to be seen, Chemist was nowhere to be seen. It was a completely different landscape. It was almost like you went to Walnut Hills and you actually had a good time. That was how different it was. Now, obviously, updates when this game was around were a huge reason of why people liked it. There was more characters to play, there was challenges to complete, there was new customizations to unlock, and to be honest, that is a great start on why people are frustrated about this game no longer getting updates and receiving the attention it once deserved. But by all means, you can disagree with me or agree with me on this. But Garden Warfare 2 in its prime was an absolute gem of a game. It was better than Garden Warfare 1. It was better than BFN. Out of the three shooter games we have available on the consoles and PC, this one has to be my favorite for many different reasons. Now, obviously, when the game, eventually took a toll and lost a lot of its fan base, it really did affect the game's performance, and how it started to get worse from that point onwards was pretty natural. You look back, you no longer get updates, you no longer get these character weekly showcases, there's no more community challenges to look forward to every single week. Less and less of your friends were starting to play the game and move on to other games. That will bring me on to my next point in a minute. But, looking back, this game truly deserved to have a longer shelf life, in my opinion. It was so out of the box and so different in terms of, how many people enjoyed it. And I feel like a lot of people do forget that PvZ as a whole exists still. And I feel like that's what made it so good, was there's nothing like PvZ out there. There's nothing like Garden Warfare 2 out there. And that's, something in itself. Bringing me on to my next point here, people would obviously then move on to other games. Now, this is totally fine. People will eventually get bored and go play something else for a while and then come back, or whatever it might have been, whether it's a single player game that came out, whether it's a multiplayer game that you started to enjoy playing. This is totally natural. It happens to every single game there is, but it really does hurt when you look back fully and you see that Garden Warfare 2 kind of got pushed aside. It was like it never existed. And I personally feel like for this game in particular, that was very unfair. And, I feel like this game definitely deserved more love. Now, don't get me wrong, there are still people that play Garden Warfare 2 to this day. There's a lot of people, that have came over to my channel and said, look, I've started to play it again. What do I do? Who do I play? Whoever. There are new players coming to the game. There are returning players coming back to the game, which is totally fine. But I can guarantee you, if you go watch some of my older footage on this YouTube channel of Garden Warfare 2 back in its prime time, it is night and day difference. I guarantee you, you will be shocked in, the footage you would see. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, there was a time where Imp had 50 HP. Just think about that for a second. It was honestly amazing how far this game had came. And all of a sudden, it was like someone pulled the plug with no reason, no announcement, no news. and just kind of wanted it to be left on the shelf. It gained dust over time. The jar that it was in became very rusty, and a lot of people just moved on. Now, obviously, moving on to other games is fine. Like I said, it happens to every single game that has ever existed. Eventually, you will get bored. Eventually, you've done everything you want to do. But the thing is with this game, at the time it was released, there was nothing like it. And that's what made it so special for a lot of different people. It was wacky, it was fun, it was crazy. The games were action packed. There was a bunch of different game modes and things you could aim towards and do. My main point being, Garden Warfare 2, in my opinion, definitely deserved a better shelf life than it did. Don't get me wrong, it absolutely smashed it in terms of numbers when it came out. There was a lot of people that played it. There was a bunch of content creators on YouTube and all these other platforms at the time that were obviously making content about the game as well. And, that in itself is amazing. But at the end of the day, for a game of this magnitude, of this level, in my opinion, it is way ahead of its time. Now, obviously, without receiving updates, that resulted in players moving on, players, forgetting about the game. But there is also another big factor that we are, avoiding here, let's say. People lose interest, People do lose interest in games. And, it's not because they're not fun anymore. You might just not want to play it ever again, which is totally understandable. There is a lot of times where I've taken breaks from this game and I reflected on it and I came back to the game to enjoy it again. But some people have strictly moved on from Garden Warfare 2. Like, they won't touch it ever again. And, that's totally fine. People have their own ways of dealing with different games and different opinions. My long story short, this game itself was definitely different. And I feel like it was perfect. There was nothing really at the time that needed to be, changed until other EA games came out. Now, for those who don't know what happened, PopCap, once upon a time, did own the PvZ franchise, but they obviously sold it to EA. In my opinion, it was good for them in terms of money, but in terms of us as the fan base, in terms of getting content, in terms of the franchise itself getting attention, it was one of the worst decisions they could have made in PvZ history. Now, EA obviously have had other games before where they have been decent, they have been recognised throughout the globe, not to mention the amount of sports games they have. I think that is one of the reasons why people just forgot about the game in general. It's because EA owns it. Now, EA is definitely not the most perfect company in the world. They have been known to do a lot of different shady stuff and cut off a lot of lines and shortcuts, etc. One thing I will say about this game, though, it got left behind for no reason. It could have easily had updates. It could have easily continued to receive character showcases every week. The obviously community challenges, etc. They could have easily added back in boss mode. They could have easily added back in, all these different game modes they took out. And, I think a big reason why is because EA don't see the value in PvZ anymore, especially Garden Warfare 2. They don't see the value. Now, what they don't realise is that, believe it or not, this game still very much, years later, has a beating heart. It definitely has a fan base. We see it every time we stream it. We see it every single time there's a bit of news that comes out. So many people are posting content about this game still, and it boggles my mind. It frustrates me to know that they're sitting there going, yeah, I don't see the value. Well, you're completely wrong. This game still has value. It still has a fan base, and it can most definitely come back from the dead, no pun intended. Now, the best way of doing this would obviously be them adding updates again, whether it's bug fixes, a new map, adding the game modes back in, whatever it may be. I can guarantee you it would get people looking back on this game and going, oh yeah, this existed. I forgot about this, So my point being, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that EA focus on a lot of other games, such as FIFA, such as Battlefield, such as, every other sports game they've ever made, Sims to a certain extent. Even Sims isn't getting the love it deserves with Sims 5. People on the Sims community have been waiting for that game for years, and they have not gotten anything news-wise about it at all. It's the same thing with Garden Warfare 2. This game deserves better. Now, let me know down in the comments what you think about this. I just wanted to log on today, make a bit of a rant about it, and try and explain to people why I hate the situation this game is in, because I think it's one of the best multiplayer unique games I've ever played. And, you know, that is saying something. I've played a lot of multiplayer games in my time, and there's not many of them that I go back to. There's a lot of them that I go, yeah, I've done what I needed to do. I don't really need to play it again. But this game isn't really the case. Sure, I take breaks. Sure, I take a step back and go, yeah, I need a bit of a chill. But I will always respect Garden Warfare 2 and the PvZ franchise as a whole. Whether EA owns it or not, I simply don't care about them. And I love this game for what it is and what it has done for me in my gaming life. Multiplayer was early on for me, for those who don't know. Garden Warfare 2, Garden Warfare 1 in particular, were one of the earliest multiplayer games I got to play myself. Now, growing up, I used to play multiplayer games with my brother. I used to share with him on a console for the majority of my early life. And Garden Warfare 1 was one of the first multiplayer games I ever got to play on my own console. That is a special memory for me. And speaking of memories, this game has created so many. I've met so many new people. I've made so many new friends. I've made a lot of enemies. You know, not everyone likes me, but that's gaming, man. That's what it's about. You log on, you have fun. And it's upsetting to know that this game will never go back to its glory days. Now, is there a chance that it comes back from the dead? Again, no pun intended. Absolutely. There is a tension on this game right now, and it fully deserves it. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. Are you frustrated with the downfall of Garden Warfare 2? I really, really am. I've always thought that this game deserved better, especially a game of this creativity, of this level. And who knows, maybe in the future I'll be making a video of Garden Warfare 3 or something to do with this game that is positive. But until then, thank you for watching. Take care, stay safe, and keep on gaming.